3 qualifying spot, having run a 7:36, and Henry with the Chevrolet ran a 7:87 into the number 6 spot, and it's Henry who gets away first. Well, is this going to be his first ever win here at Cannonball? But just look at Bert Engelfield come storming back in that right-hand lane. 7.52 takes the win. Wow, what a race. And into the next round, Alan Packman will be meeting Gordon Appleton. Granada against Camaro, Dave Mingay against Bert Engelfield, Calibra against Toyota Supra. Okay, here we go into round 1 of competition bike in the FIM Championship for 1995. The first pair sees Great Britain's Steve Woolett, a man who runs down into the 6-second bracket. This is phenomenal on two-wheel machines, in excess of 200 miles per hour. But it's a real David and Goliath tussle here. He's up against Jan Hanee from the Netherlands with his little 480cc bike. And that little machine, under 500, runs at 869. Incredible, but loses out to Steve Woolett, who stamps his authority over it all with a 7.02. Now, this is a real mix in this class. We've got nitro burners, and we've also got turbocharged nitrous oxide assisted machines. Now, this is Roel Kodan from the Netherlands. He's on a 1240cc nitro-burning Puma machine up against Augie Harrison. Augie running with a 1260cc turbocharged nitrous oxide Suzuki. But just look at the way Kodan comes back at the top end, but it's not enough. Augie Harrison takes the win at 7.49. Our next pair puts Holland against Great Britain. This is Great Britain's Phil Bainbridge, the man who currently holds the record in the FIM Championship for top fuel machinery. And he is supposed to be racing this man from the Netherlands, Henk Gade, with his nitro-burning Puma. But Henk's got some problems on the start line, so it's going to be Phil all on his own. Now, Phil was our number 2 qualifier, having run a 7.13, an almost identical machine to Steve Woolett's. And he lets that loose, no holding back on that by-run through into the next round, and runs a 7.25, 188 miles per hour. Really stunning stuff. The next pair puts this man, Peter Svensson, with his quite extraordinary machine. Believe it or not, 1780 cc's of home-built billet power against Great Britain's John Moulton. John Moulton, 1327 cc's of Suzuki power. Unfortunately, no match for the Swede, Peter Svensson, who holds the record for elapsed time in the FIM Championship, takes the win, 7.35. So the next round's going to put Steve Woolett against Augie Harrison, Phil Bainbridge against Peter Svensson. There are 3 Brits in there and 1 Swedish rider. Okay, let's move back into the Cannonball, round number 2. Now, don't forget, they're not racing. Even though they may come out in pairs, they are just purely looking for times. And at the end of round number 1, of course, John Spuffard was out in front of Harlan Thompson. Then it was Urs Urbacher, the man we now see burning out in his Dodge Daytona. And then it was Michael Kagerad with the Mustang. Michael Kagerad was the winner in this championship in 1990, where he took out Runefield. Urs Urbacher has yet to win at Santa Pod, but at the moment, Urbacher is in front of Kagerad. Now, the thing with these 2 cars is that they are consistent. They will run those low 6-second times all the time. And it's Urbacher who gets to the top end again first, but it's Kagerad who records the quickest time. Kagerad throws in a 6.19 on that timing ticket. Urs Urbacher, 6.24. And those 2 end up, at the end of that particular run, with identical total times of 12.56 seconds. Here's Clive Michelle. Clive was sitting in the number 7 spot with the hot rod from hell. This altered after round number 1. And he's running alongside last year's champ, Harlan Thompson. Now, Harlan Thompson was in 2nd spot behind John Spuffard, but not a lot behind John Spuffard. Remember, he ran a 6.07. He's got a big crew here with him this weekend. Out comes the parachute real early for Harlan Thompson, but he runs an incredible 5.81. Clive Michelle runs a 7.72, and that immediately puts Harlan Thompson on top of the pile with that run. What are we going to see back from these two? This is John Spuffard from Great Britain leading after the first round. And John needs to run to stay in contention with Harlan Thompson at least 5.90. Now, in the opposing lane, the man who had an unfortunate incident in round number one, Gary Page, where that fuel pipe came off. Now, Gary really has got a lot of work to do here, but we know that he can do it. Gary Page, past Cannonball winner, makes driving funny cars look so easy. So here we go, side by side, looking for times, don't forget, and Spuffard right out in front there, puts in a great, he was looking for a 5.90, runs 5.91. Gary Page, getting quicker all the time, puts in a run of 6.66. So everything is looking pretty good at the moment for the Brits. Here's Peter Cruz from Germany. Now, Peter had a really bad run in the first round, ended up in the number 10 spot, but this looks a lot better from him. Shuts off about three-quarter track. Was that engine hurting again? Lots of blue smoke there. Runs through 7.06 and ends up in the number 9 spot. Tony Baker, new kid on the block, still learning his trade in top alcohol funny cars. Now, he ran an 8.17 in the first round, got himself the number 9 spot. What are we going to see here? Well, a good launch. All the way through there, runs a 7, his first ever in this alcohol funny car. Well done, Tony Baker, 7.982, and ends up after round number 2 in spot number 10. Well, here's the man who got himself the number 5 spot after round number 1. This is Lex June with the Dodge Daytona X Bernie Hepworth funny car. And what a great showing Lex is putting on here this weekend. Ran a 6.47 in round number 1. And clicks it off this year, just running alongside Alan Jackson as a pacemaker here. He collects a timing ticket of 7.98 and ends up again in the number 5 spot. So after the second round, John Spuffard, by 9,000ths of a second, sits on top of Harlan Thompson, but in joint third spot, Barker and Kagrad just waiting for one of those funny cars to make a mistake. Who will it be who goes into the final? Stay with us after the break and we'll find out.
From the home of sport.
It's the Cannonball, it's Santa Pod Raceway, it's the start of June, American Independence Day. So it's right that we should be celebrating American Independence Day with the all-American sport drag racing. This is the Cannonball Shootout, round number 3. Looking for quickest times here, looking for the 2 cars with the quickest total time to go into a heads-up final race. Harlan Thompson, after round number 2, sitting in spot number 2, behind England's John Spuffard. Now this looks a good run from Harlan again, those flames licking up the side. Once again, he clicks it off. And he runs a 5.79, clicking it off at least 50 yards before the finish line. What could that man run if he kept the power on right the way through? Maybe he's saving that for the final. He has got to be thinking now, Harlan Thompson, that he is in the final after that run. Gets quicker and quicker every outing. Here's our next pair from Great Britain, the California kid of Clive Michelle. After round number 2, Clive sitting in the number 8 spot with the altered, and Tony Baker with the Ford Probe sitting in the number 10 spot after round number 2. Both looking to put in good runs here. Don't forget, Tony Baker put down his first ever 7-second run here today, and he does it again, 7.93. Another low 7-second run for the California kid, but they have got to be considered to be out of competition. We're looking for the quickest 2. Well, once again, the 2 Brits coming out in the top fuel cars, side by side. Gary Page with the Motorola-sponsored machine, having problems with the clutch setup in Runefield's car. Hops and steps on the start line, but a big explosion. Spuffard Showtime funny car explodes. Well, John Spuffard was looking for a 5-second run here to get into the final, to get himself out of the clutches of the alcohol cars. Look at the fury of that explosion there. The blower belt let go, and that's the end of that race for John Spuffard. He collects a timing ticket of 6.91. Well, that sets the benchmark for these 2 alcohol funny cars to shoot at. Now, for one of these two to get into the final with Harlan Thompson, we've got to consider that Thompson is in that final now. One of these two has got to run 6.22 seconds or quicker. Michael Kagerad from Sweden, Urs Urbacher from Switzerland. Both of these guys can run underneath that 6.22 mark, but can they do it now? This is where it counts the most. So side by side, the two alcohol funny cars, they're looking for a place in the final. All we could do is watch the times. They're almost side by side, but it's Kagerad. Michael Kagerad says, hey, I'm here. I want